So this week we're going to bring together some of the things that we've learned, but we're also going to do something quite different as well. We're going to do a mixed media piece using acrylic paint and collage. So I thought I'd do a little introduction to collage for those of you who either haven't done it since preschool or haven't done it for a very long time. So I've got a marvellous array of things here, and you really don't need all of this. This is just some ideas. So the simplest thing to do would be to use something like an old magazine. This is probably not the best type of magazine, but just something with lots of images and things in it. And then you can just cut out and or tear out and use those. Or newspaper, you could use newspaper. That's the most basic level. Next step up, something like plain tissue paper. You can either collage this on and then kind of ruche it up onto the surface in order to create texture, and then when it dries you can paint over the top. Alternatively, you can take tissue paper, and if you have stamps and ink, you can stamp on the paper to create kind of textures or images or bits of text. So that's a sheet that I've prepared from stamps that I already have, and that's something that I sometimes use in collaging. In terms of a surface, I would either use a mixed media paper, so something like this in the A4, or you could even go A3 if you wanted to. A5 is a little bit small. If you wanted to work A5 you could, but you could create several different panels and then put them together, perhaps like a sort of a mosaic collage. I had these lying around. These are just cardboard panels. You could also use a canvas panel, which are pre-prepared panels. This is obviously quite thick, so even if I put lots of paint and lots of glue and things on it, it's not going to warp. So in terms of a surface, that's something that I would probably recommend. Then you have kind of printed tissue paper like this that you could use. This is very thin. It's opaque, but it's almost sort of semi-transparent, and this has got like a nice gold leaf put into that as well. You could use something like a very basic piece of wrapping paper. I would be careful though, because this one is starting to yellow. This is a very cheap wrapping paper, so that will yellow on your work, so just be a little bit careful if you're using non-art printed papers. There's all kinds of other things you could use that you might have lying around. Things like sweet papers, you can keep those. Bits of wallpaper, and that's one that I've just cut with a like a craft cutter. I've got lots of tiny little bits of paper from previous bits of collage that I've done. Paper bags. And these, I'll move them over here, these are all just bits and pieces of things that I've used before in collage. So there's more wallpaper. These are kind of bits of this. This is actually a craft paper pack, which I'll show you in a second. This is just textured paper, and textured paper works quite nice. These are just sweet papers, bit of wrapping paper, textured craft paper, which is kind of, I don't know if you can see on the black, it's kind of got like a ruched texture to it. These are quite nice. They're almost sort of fabricy. They're like pulped paper, so they're quite nice to use. And even when I've used them to collage once, I just keep them and just keep sort of little scraps of paper that I can tear different shapes of. So this is kind of my craft scraps. This is really thick. It looks a little bit like wood chip wallpaper on one side, and on the other side it's just kind of like a pulped paper. They feel nice, they're very tactile. There's some more bag. This is just a piece of packaging that I kept because it's shiny. You can probably see in the light. And it also had this kind of mock galvanized effect, which I thought was quite nice. And there's another paper bag. And then the craft papers. This was just like a jumbo craft paper pack, and you've got like these flocked ones. So these, I know you can't feel them, but these are like a velvety flock texture. This is that ruched paper again. I don't know if you can see. Then we have these types, which almost look hairy, where they've put something into the pulp. So there's loads and loads of different types, different colours, and you've got these sort of checked ones as well, which feel very flimsy. So yeah, there's that kind of thing that you can use, and there's loads of variety in there. And then this is some more wrapping paper. This is like a thicker wrapping paper, but again, metallics can work quite nicely in collage. And then you can also save packaging. So this is just a piece of cardboard, and when you sit and kind of tear the top part off, you get this kind of card here. And again, you can paint that in whatever colour you want, and then put it into whichever shapes you like as well. In terms of sticking, you have the art grade material. So these are gloss heavy gel and super heavy gel. These are for adhering things which are quite thick. So something like the card, which would need to be stuck down with something quite significant, I would use something like this on. If we want to go non-art grade materials, then just something like a cheap PVA. This is just a PVA from the pound shop. And in terms of gluing your heavier elements on, if you want to go the cheap route, we've got good old Yoo-Hoo. Copydex is a bit messy, so I'd say err on the side of caution with that. It tends to create lots of stringy bits, which can be a bit of a pain to clean off of your work. But Yoo-Hoo would do the job. For example, sticking something like that, that would be fine. Takes a while to dry. You could also create texture, so something like these heavy gels and also things like heavy carvable gel, you can just put onto your surface using a palette knife, leave it to dry, and then you can drag things like this through. This is like an effects comb, so you could create swirls and things, almost like an Artex kind of a design. So there's lots of ways that you can create texture in your work. If you want the art alternative to this, you'd be looking at like a medium, really. So something like a gel medium, either matte or gloss gel medium. They're about £10 for a sort of small bottle. Liquitex makes them, but I have found that this works just as well, to be honest. So if you're starting, then I would recommend just getting some PVA. You can buy it in places like Hobbycraft, or as I said, in the pound shop. Whatever floats your boat, really, whatever fits your budget. So that's a kind of brief introduction to what we use to stick, what types of papers or found elements around the house that we might use, recycled packaging or wrapping paper, for example, and also what type of substrate, whether that's cardboard, canvas, canvas board or paper. And don't forget, you could even use something like spare packaging if you like. If you've had lots of parcels delivered and you've got kind of A4 bits of cardboard, then just chop along the edges and use that. That's perfectly okay.